All right, everyone, welcome. This is our first webinar for the year, and today we're going to be kicking off with the West Coast palm issues. So we're going to be having Donald Odell talk about that and palm biology, pests, and diseases. And anyone that's currently attending, use the Q&A to ask any questions, and we're going to save the last 10 minutes for a few questions, and then if we're not able to answer all the questions, you can reach out to myself or Donald directly. And then if you weren't able to put your put your ISA CEU number into the chat, just so if you weren't able to sign up, put your ISA number in there, and we'll follow up with that. And then this webinar will be recorded, so you'll be able to follow up with that later on our YouTube page. And then be able to check our event page and see that there are more webinars that we're going to have, and sign up for those sign up for those, and we'll have more webinars and in-person events. So I'm going to go into the next slide here, and my name's Gabe Verdusco. I'm our team's regional arborist advisor. Internally, we call that the arborologist, and I help support our territory managers on the West Coast here, and supporting with trainings, demos of our products, our equipment. I've been giving talks at PAPA seminars and partaking in all the industry events, and so it's been really great role that I've been taking on here, and hoping to support you with anything plant healthcare related. And so we have Donald Odell today, and he is our Emeritus Environmental and Landscape Horticulture Advisor. He was previously with the University of California Cooperative Extension.
I have a lot of material to cover. Well, welcome everybody. Can you all hear me?
Okay. I can hear you, so okay. I'm sure they should be able to. I think everybody's muted, so.
Oh, okay.
Let's.
Well, as Gabe noted, I'm the Emeritus Landscape Horticulture Advisor for the University of California Cooperative Extension in Los Angeles, a position I held for 36 years. I started in 1983 and retired in 2019. It was 36 years to the day, actually. And I'm originally from California. I grew up in Southern California, graduated from Cal Poly Pomona. Then I went to graduate school at the University of Hawaii, came back to California, after working in the industry in Hawaii for 5 years, came back to California, worked in the industry in northern San Diego County, and then in 1983, I got the job with the University of California. And I loved my work. I did research and writing, working with people like you folks in the industry, trying to help you solve your problems. And it was a wonderful career. In fact, I loved it so much that even though I retired, I still do research and writing. And if you are interested in some of the things I've done that it might help you in your job, and this one is very pertinent, this book, The Biology and Management of Landscape Palms, which is now going on its 13th year, published by ISA Western Chapter, and it's pretty nominally priced. I don't make any money on it. I donated all the proceeds back to the Britain Fund in the Western Chapter, and it goes into supporting other research projects. Also, I have a website. The part that's most active for me is Palm Arbor. It's an electronic journal that's now entering its 11th year, where we have articles about horticulture, taxonomy, selection of mostly woody landscape plants. And you can just Google Odell palms trees and you can find Palm Arbor. And it's got some pretty interesting articles in it. There are many authors who contribute. So we're gearing up for our 11th year, and the university is moving it to a new platform later this month, and hopefully there won't be too much downtime with that. But If there is, just be patient. We'll be back up and running shortly. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about palm biology, a very brief introduction, or for some of you, a review. And then I'll talk about palm pests and palm diseases. We originally were going to include palm disorders, but it became too much material to cover in a little bit less than an hour. And hopefully what I have today, I can get done in a little less than an hour. But we'll have a second part of this next month about palm disorders, which includes palm nutrition. So here's the book Western Chapter is doing, and here's my website. You can just Google Hodel palms and trees, and you can get Palm Arbor. So our program today, as I said, was biology and palm pests and diseases. So what is a palm? Well, palms are woody monocots, and they have solitary or clustered habit, which is primarily dependent on the number of stems or trunks. And lucky for us in the landscape, their photosynthetic and reproductive efforts are aggregated into relatively few organs, leaves and inflorescences, which really helps capturing and hauling away potential litter. And the root system of palms, they have what's called an adventitious root system. Each primary root arises independently from other roots from the base of the trunk in what's called the root initiation zone. And that's important because it enables us to transplant very large specimens with a very small root ball. There's no mechanism for secondary growth in palms. All the growth is primary. There's no cambium, and there's only one apical meristem per trunk. There's no covering over of wounds because there's no ability for secondary growth. Vascular bundles, which contain xylem and phloem, are scattered across the palm trunk. A preponderance of them is near the perimeter of the trunk for maximum strength. And palms are most actively growing during the warmer months. And this is the best time to transplant them, actually, at the beginning of the warm months, because their roots are most active then. Palms are botanically are not sago palms, ponytail palms, or other palm-like plants. And palms are often armed, which is a strange concept for me to accept, because I always think of palms as being tropical, and I don't think of too many spiny plants in the wet tropics, but there are some. So here we see an example on the left, the Canary Island date palm. That's a solitary palm, and on the right we see a Coeluraphe wrightii, a Native American palm from South Florida and the Caribbean that is multi-trunked. And here's a cross section of a palm stem. This happens to be Washingtonia robusta, and you see a light layer, very thin light layer on the outside of the trunk. That's the pseudobark, and then inside that we see the main part of the trunk, which is composed of kind of an orangish brown background tissue. And embedded in that tissue are the individual vascular bundles, each containing phloem and xylem. And those are those little black circles that you see. And notice that they become denser toward the perimeter of the palm trunk. And that again, that's an adaptation for maximum strength. Palm trunks are very strong. They rarely break in the wind. They're more likely to be uprooted than they are to have the trunk broken, at least if they're healthy. But as we'll see in a little bit, they can break when they aren't healthy, when there's disease involved. The apical meristem is where all growth occurs, above ground growth. And this is a longitudinal section across a king palm, Archonta cunninghamniana. And you see the upper part of the stem on the right, you see the stem labeled, and above that, on the right and the left, are leaf bases from mature leaves. And as you go inward toward the center, you see developing leaves, and the apical meristem is right there at the top of the stem. And that is responsible for all upward growth, production of leaves and flower and inflorescences or flower clusters and fruit clusters, and for trunk diameter. But once the trunk has reached its its largest diameter and starts to elongate vertically, it doesn't get any wider, so it doesn't get fatter. And that little thing there, the apical meristem, is really the key to everything. And if you've eaten hearts of palm salad, which I like, you're eating the apical meristem of a palm. So unfortunately, a palm trunk was killed so you could enjoy your salad. However, don't feel too bad about it because these are all plantation grown now. In earlier years, they actually cut wild palms out of the forest, driving some of them nearly to extinction. So now they have plantations where the palms are grown specifically for the apical meristem. So you can have a guiltless eating of hearts of palm salad. So in terms of the habit of the palm, they have a single elongated axis, which is a stem or the trunk, or a series of these, which make up the habit of the palm. Growth is restricted to the extremities, so leaves and inflorescences and trunk at the top, and roots at the bottom. And there's very little else going on along that trunk once it elongates vertically, because all the growth is at the top or the bottom. The roots are adventitious. Again, they're coming from the root initiation zone near ground level or the base of the trunk. So here's a Phoenix dactylifera. This is the Halawi variety or cultivar, and it shows pretty well in all its unabashed glory the various parts of the palm. So at the top we have the leaves, at the bottom we have the roots, and the rest of the trunk is covered with persistent leaf bases, but there's very little going on in that part where the trunk is. All the action's at the top and at the bottom. This was, by the way, this was for a leaf removal and tie-up study we were doing in the desert. And it was 115 degrees that day. We were there. Maybe the hottest temperature I've ever been in my life. So the leaf is composed of the base, which attaches the entire organ to the palm trunk or stem, and the blade on the left, which is the giant solar receptor that's spread out and open and collecting sunlight to produce carbs for the plant to grow. And sometimes there's a petiole, and that's the slender organ that connects the blade to the base. This is a Washingtonia leaf, by the way, that blew down during a rainstorm. There are two types of palm leaves. We have pinnate or feather, like in this king palm, and we have fan or palmate leaves, like in this palmetto palm. And inflorescences, like I said, they're aggregations of small flowers and potentially later small fruits. And there are relatively few inflorescences per palm. And so with a few timely cuts, all of 1 year's worth of potential potential flower and fruit litter can be removed from the palm before it falls into the landscape. Same goes for the leaves. Palms produce leaves at the top. That's where the new leaves emerge. And with a few timely cuts at the base of the canopy, all of a potential year's worth of leaf litter can be removed just with a few cuts. So it's a landscape maintenance dream in a way to have a plant like this that's already aggregating the potential leaf litter for you. Palm roots are produced at the base of the trunk, and this is the base of a king palm, and you see all the primary roots coming out from the base. This is what enables us to transplant palms easily with a small root ball, because during the growing season, they're always producing new roots from the base. There are about 200 genera in the palm family, and each genus, which is singular for genera, each genus contains species, and there are about 2,500 species in the world. That number fluctuates depending on which palm taxonomist is talking or writing at the moment. Most of the palm family is wet tropical in origin, so we really can't grow them here along the West Coast. Some are moist or monsoon tropical, which means they have a distinct dry season. And some of these we can grow here. And then the ones we can mostly grow are the subtropical or even temperate species, which often come from harsh climates like deserts. Those are the palms we can grow. So our major obstacle for growing palms here is lack of cold tolerance. And in some instances, lack of water, because that's always an issue on the West Coast. And if you'd like to impress somebody who's significant in your life later today or on Valentine's Day, you can tell them that the oil palm and coconut palm are two of the world's top 10 agronomic crops. Or how about this? Palms are the tallest monocots. A species in South America called Ceroxylon grows to 200 feet tall. Or the longest stem, a rattan. You know, if you sat in some rattan furniture, you're sitting on a piece of furniture that's made from palm stems. They've pulled a rattan out of the canopy in Southeast Asia that was 550 feet long. And the largest inflorescences in the plant family are in a palm called Corypha. They can be 30 feet tall, 15 feet wide, and have hundreds of thousands of flowers. The longest leaf is a palm, Raphia regalis, 80 feet long, one leaf. And the largest seed, the double coconut, Lodicea, from the Seychelles Islands in the Indian Ocean, is like almost like two basketballs fused together. So use those and impress your significant other during a romantic evening. Okay, the three palm pests I'm going to talk about are ones you probably know pretty well, although the last one, banana moth, may be flying under the radar because it was flying under the radar for me for several years. But that's the South American palm weevil, invasive shot-hole borer, and banana moth. This is not to say that palms don't have other pests. They do, but these are the three most significant ones at the moment, which could change. So this is what the South American palm weevil does to, especially Canary Island date palms. It kills them. And they're very difficult to manage and control. And some of this may be review for you folks. So this is the adult weevil or beetle. It's a beetle. It's a type of beetle called a weevil because it has that long snout coming out of its foreparts there that they use for digging into the palm tissue. It's native to tropical America. It's been killing palms in Tijuana since 2010. Trapped in San Diego since 2010, but not attacking palms in San Diego till about 2015. It's also been detected in the Imperial Valley in California, which is scary for date growers, and in Arizona and Texas. As of January of this year, so just a few days ago, it's as far north as Fallbrook. So it's coming north. It hasn't yet made it to Palm Rich, Orange and LA counties and Santa Barbara counties and Ventura County, but it's coming, and it's probably just a matter of time, not if it will get here. Its common hosts include the Canary Island date palm and other date palms, but its primary host, its preferred host is Canary Island date palm because it's such a big plant with a lot of food sources and a lot of leaves that make a lot of nooks and crannies for the adult female to lay eggs. The South American palm weevil also vectors a nematode that causes a disease called red ring disease, which is a deadly wilt disease of palms. So far, the nematode has not yet arrived, uh, has not been detected in California, Arizona, or Texas. However, this is not unusual when you have an advancing wave, a new invasive bug or creature, and it's vectoring something else with it. The ones that are vectoring are usually a little bit behind the frontal wave that first arrives. So it's likely that we will get red ring disease eventually. But since it's not here, I won't talk about it. So some recent additional palm hosts include Brahea edulis, the massive Jubea chilensis, the most massive palm we grow here. Phoenix dactylifera, the mainstay of it is the date industry in the Coachella Valley. Phoenix reclinata, Phoenix robellini, Sabal bermudana, and I think there's even some other species. So what happens when the weevil kills all the Canary Island date palms in an area, then it jumps to less preferable species. And we're still adding species to the list now. The first symptoms you might see would be some leaf notching. This is a Canary Island date palm, and you see at about 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, you see leaves that have cut off pinnae. You will also find grooving at the petiole base, and the grooving is often filled with frass, the sawdust-like material. And typically on a well-advanced infestation, you'll find these shredded wheat-looking cocoons that will have, if they haven't emerged yet, you'll find larvae and pupae inside. So there's a pupa sticking its head out the end of one of those shredded wheat-like cocoons. You can find these up in the tree. You can find them down on the ground underneath the tree. So the best way to manage this problem is not to try to treat it after it starts. Once the beetle, adult female, has laid its eggs, the eggs hatch, the larvae burrow into the apical meristem looking for that hearts of palm, and then they kill it. And then they pupate, and once the larvae are burrowing in, there's little you can do to stop it. So the most important thing is sanitation, removal and disposal of infested palms. Provide proper culture, and here I'm talking about water, fertilizer, mulch. The palms will still attack, the beetle will still attack palms that are growing healthily. But if you ever going to have a palm that's going to recover, it's better to have it in optimal health to begin with. Avoid wounding palms because wounds give off a chemical signal that the adults can pick up from far away and helps them fly right into where that wound is, and then they're on the tree. So applying contact and systemic pesticides prophylactically after pruning and to protect valuable specimens. This means spraying the canopy and the root zone, the root zone with a systemic material that can be taken up inside the palm. And then mass trapping with pheromone baits that contain a pesticide. We have to get ahead of this pest. If we wait till it's on the tree and doing damage, it's probably too late. And these are the preferred traps now, the Picasun traps. And there's a method to the madness of strategically placing these out. You don't want to put them right next to the palm. but you want to put them on the perimeter of the property that has palms to intercept them if they're coming your way. There are some diseases and disorders that can mimic the South American palm weevil. Again, it's the newest leaves that die first, leaving this apron or skirt of healthy green leaves that will stay on the palm for many months, sometimes a year before they eventually die. But pink rot disease, fusarium wilt, power line pruning, two-tiered canopy, mineral deficiencies, planting and transplanting stress, and water stress can all mimic, to a certain extent, the symptoms of South American palm weevil. Okay, the invasive shot-hole borer. The invasive shot-hole borer has been around for about 15 years. I think it was first found on avocados up in LA County. And it has a wide host range, over 200 woody species, including some palms. And it vectors a complex of fungi that cause the disease Fusarium dieback. And not all plants that are attacked by the borer are susceptible to the Fusarium dieback. The Fusarium dieback attacks about 140 woody species, including a few palms. So it was originally thought, when this disease was first detected around 2010 or late early 2000s, that it was going to attack every woody plant there was in the landscape. And it didn't turn out that way. We still have trees in the landscape after 15 years. So fortunately, it didn't live up to its hype completely. But there are actually several species of the borer that are involved here. There was one in San Diego, one in Orange and LA counties, and then they found one in the Bay Area. And their morphology is so similar, it's difficult to tell them apart based just on morphological characters. You have to use DNA sequencing to tell them apart. So they're all. It used to be just shot hole borer, and now it's called the invasive shot hole borer because it's three borers lumped together that are doing this damage and spreading the Fusarium disease, that complex of fungi, pathogenic fungi, including Fusarium, Graphium, and Paracremonium. So the borers bore into the palm trunk. They bring with them, they vector these different fungi. The fungi grow. That's what the larvae, the borer larvae, feed on. Unfortunately, in some cases, the host plant is not resistant to the Fusarium disease complex, so they will die. The plant will die, even though the borer larvae are feeding on it. The beetles are small, dark brown to black, a 7/7 to 1/10 of an inch long. The males are wingless and smaller and brown. The fungi-carrying females land on a host, bore into the wood, lay eggs, and spread the Fusarium disease fungi. The larvae feed on the fungi. The mature siblings mate, and fungi-carrying pregnant females depart through the entry hole made by their mothers. It's a tropical beetle, or they are tropical beetles, most active in the summer and fall in Southern California when populations and damage tend to spike. So we put some tape over some entry-exit holes on some palm trunks, and we were able to catch some of the mature beetles trying to exit. So you can see their size here, their shape, and their color. They make small, precise entry holes, almost as if they've been drilled. And sometimes there's gumming, stained or darkened surface tissues, and fine sawdust-like frass. On traditional trees or non-palms, they often produce a white sugary exudate that surrounds the entry hole. But we haven't seen that on palms yet. So these are, you see the little drill holes there, and there's some sawdust like frass on the surface. This is Kentia palm, Howea forsteriana, with invasive shot-hole borer. And over on the left, you see, just a minute. Apologize for that. My wife and I babysit our granddaughter 5 days a week, and she took our granddaughter out to have lunch, but she left her phone here, so it was ringing. On the left, you see a palm trunk with that gummy, almost jello-like exudate, and over on the right, you see another Kentia palm that also showing the exudate from the drill holes or the entry exit holes. And typically there's a lot of frass. It looks like fine sawdust has been piled up on the trunk. There are a couple scenarios that can happen here. If the fungi successfully colonizes a palm, the wood turns dark brown to black surrounding the galleries. Not all palms are successfully colonized, though. White fungal mycelia sometimes is visible inside the galleries. So again, if the palm is resistant to the fungal disease complex, you won't see a lot of this mycelial growth. And fortunately, to date, typical wilt symptoms and eventual palm death have not yet been attributed to the Fusarium disease dieback. So I have pictures of the here are entry holes. This is a king palm that we cut down that had lots of exit holes, and you can see the galleries here, and notice that they're dark, so there's a little bit of damage to the tissue around them, but it's not really spreading extensively in the photo on the right. In the photo on the left, it did spread somewhat, but there's no white mycelium here. So this species might not be susceptible to the Fusarium disease dieback. Now here we see another palm where it does have the white mycelial growth in the galleries, and this one might be susceptible to the Fusarium disease dieback, but so far the palms have been able to contain it quite well. Palm stems are very hard, actually, and each of those vascular bundles is sheathed in very hard tissues. In fact, the tissues at the base of the palm tissues tend to harden and strengthen with age. So infections that are down near the base of the trunk could easily be stopped because of the hardness and strength of the palm tissues. So here are some common palms that have been attacked by the invasive shot-hole borer, and this is a summary of their susceptibility to the Fusarium dieback disease. So most of them will have the Fusarium dieback, but it doesn't seem to kill the palm. So the most common ones that we run across would be the king palm, the first one, Brahia armata, the Mexican blue palm, Butea odorata, typically in the trade as Butea capitata, Howia forsteriana, Livistona chinensis, and Washingtonia filifera. So I want to see if I can back up here. So fortunately, some of these palms aren't susceptible to the fusarium complex. Some are, but again, so far we haven't seen the fusarium complex kill any palms. So that's a relief. Now the final uh, pest I wanted to talk about today is the banana moth, which for me flew under the radar for me because the symptoms are typically in the newer leaves. And I attributed these symptoms to mineral deficiencies. But as it turned out, they weren't. The banana moth has a wide host range, including palms and non-palms. It's native to subtropical and tropical Africa. It's now widespread in Central America, Europe, Madagascar, and many Pacific islands. In the USA, it's in Hawaii, California, and Florida. In California, it was recently mostly documented in majesty palms and windmill palms, but more recently has become resurgent on king palms and Kentia palms, especially in LA and Orange counties. You can walk through whole neighborhoods in southeast LA County in La Mirada a couple of years ago, and every king palm was going downhill because of banana moth. So these are the symptoms. Again, it's mostly the new growth. So maybe it's the palm weevil, but it's not. But the banana moth is basically our palm weevil up here in LA and Orange counties until the palm weevil gets here and displaces it. But this is a serious pest that's flew under the radar for a long time. So these are all on majesty palms. There's a trachycarpus, lower right. Because the symptoms are primarily on the new growth, it could be mistaken for other ailments like pink rot disease, micronutrient deficiencies, which could be present with the banana moth. But like I said, the banana moth has been flying under the radar. It's kind of a stealth pest for us because it was confused with other more familiar problems. And there's king palm. These are in orange on the left and in fullerton on the right. The adult moths are small, up to 3/4 of an inch long. The female lays eggs at the base of the leaves. They hatch and the larvae burrow toward the apical meristem. So at 60 degrees Fahrenheit, the eggs hatch in about 12 days, faster in warmer areas. Larvae tunnel into the apical meristem, and they need about 50 days to develop. To pupate, and then pupal stage is 20 days. There's the adult moth. That's courtesy of Lyle Buss at the University of Florida. And the larvae are kind of a dirty white or transparent with small legs and a dark head. They are not strong flyers, but are attracted to wounds, just like the palm weevil. These freshly cut petioles or leaf bases give off this chemical signal that attracts them. And apparently, stressed palms are also slightly more susceptible. So there's a larva on the right, courtesy of Lyle, University of Florida, and on the left, and on the right is a larva we extracted from a Chinese windmill palm. They're voracious eaters, typically of stressed, decaying, or dead tissue, but quickly move to healthy tissue. They kill, damage, or deform new leaves. In many cases, the damage might not be visible until the leaves push up and open up if they haven't been destroyed completely. So this is leaf damage from banana moth. That's windmill palm left and center, and majesty palm right. So stunted, deformed, emerging leaves, compressed zigzag or accordion-like growth, unopened or unevenly opened spear leaves, dark necrotic areas, truncated or cut off new leaves, missing or deformed pinnae. Many of these are similar to what the South American palm weevil can cause. This is a property in Fullerton on the left, June 2020. And then 9 months later on the right, and you can see how quickly banana moth can progress and kill palms. Copious, somewhat coarse, sawdust-like frass is present. If the apical meristem is killed, the palm is dead. Damage can leave apical meristem susceptible to secondary issues like pink rot disease. And here are some things that you could confuse banana moth damage with: pink rot, micronutrient deficiencies, heat stress, South American palm weevil, and microscopic mites. In terms of managing banana moths, stress weakened and or wounded palms seem more susceptible, especially water stress palms. So optimal culture is really important, but it attacks healthy palms too. So minimize stress. Early detection is critical. Consider treating freshly cut surfaces with BT or one of the systemic materials. Consider prophylactic treatments of leaves and apical meristem. So, and maybe soil treatments with a systemic, because again, you're trying to protect this palm, so you want to protect the canopy where the adults will land, and get material up inside the palm also. So it's sort of like the South American palm weevil management. Okay, a few diseases to talk about. The worst one we have is Fusarium wilt of Canary Island date palm. It's a vascular disease. There are species-specific forms. It primarily attacks Phoenix canariensis, primarily spread on pruning tools. It's 100% fatal, but nearly 100% preventable through safe pruning practices. So here's a street west of downtown LA that is totally overcome by Fusarium wilt. And the first symptoms you'll see will be a lot of dead leaves in the lower part of the canopy, as you see here. And leaves that are just starting to turn brown, they often have one-sided death, where one side of the leaf is green, the other side is brown. So here's another Canary Island date palm. There's my former colleague, Jim Downer, holding up a leaf showing it's green on one side and brown on the other. And the photo on the right shows the same thing. So this indicates Fusarium might be there, Fusarium wilt. Sometimes a cross section of a leaf rachis will show discoloration, and also the pinkish flush seems to be associated with Fusarium wilt. So remember, it's 100% fatal. There's no cure for it, so we have to prevent it, exclude it. Sanitation is important. Disinfect saw blades before moving to a new tree. Avoid spreading soil, control water runoff, control trunk and root debris at removal. Spread out plastic sheeting, plywood barriers to prevent the sawdust and grindings from spreading around the site. And don't replant a palm that died from Fusarium wilt with a new palm, because the Fusarium wilt can linger in the soil, the fungus, for 25 years at least, and then reinfect a newly planted palm. So no chainsaws. Yes, these hand saws are more laborious and tedious, but they're easier to clean. And we say no chainsaws because you can't clean them thoroughly, at least yet. We haven't developed a mechanism for doing that. Now we have a new Fusarium that that attacks queen and Mexican fan palms. And here it is on queen palms. So we've been wrestling with this fusarium wilt on Canary Island date palm for nearly half a century. And then in June 2019, I received a call from a person in Fallbrook whose queen palms were dying. And so Paul Santos of Waypoint Analytical, now of Plant Pulse Diagnostics in Anaheim, isolated Fusarium oxysporum from it, and CDFA confirmed it was the form of Fusarium wilt that attacks multiple species of palms, not just Canary Island date palm as the original form does. So Paul isolated Fusarium from the Playa Vista section of LA also, and CDFA confirmed that this infection on Mexican fan palms was also the Fusarium. So not only does this new Fusarium attack Canary Island date palm, it also attacks queen palms and Mexican fan palms. So those are three of our most widespread and popular palms. So here you see it at Playa Vista on Mexican fans. Mexican fans again. Typically in the lower leaves, you see symptoms first, and you have these wedge-shaped brown areas, pie-shaped brown areas in the leaf. Then the leaf dies, and then it moves up higher in the canopy, and then the whole palm dies. So it's similar to the Fusarium wilt on Canary Island date palm. It attacks the water conducting tissues. Initial symptoms are lower or older leaves. In queen palms, one-sided leaf yellowing and browning. In Mexican fan palms, these wedge-shaped yellowing and browning. Here's queen palm, and this is on Mexican fan palm. Yes, Mexican fan palm.
Hey,
So,
Donald, we have
yes.
about 10 minutes. There's only a couple questions, so I think we can save
Okay.
a couple minutes.
Okay. This new form of Fusarium, the way to diagnose it is by symptoms, but you can't confirm it until you cut the palm down and look at the trunk. So cross sections of the trunk display dark brown to nearly black discoloration, especially toward the periphery of the trunk. So here you see it. This is queen palm with the discoloration. And this is Mexican fan palm with the discoloration. So you'll, with this amount of discoloration, you'll see a lot of foliar symptoms. Symptoms alone are typically sufficient for identification. Remember, infected palms have an inordinate quantity of yellowing, brown, and dead leaves in the lower canopy. Or if it's an intensely managed palm where dead leaves are frequently removed, then the palm will have a consistently small canopy of green leaves. Death is typically rapid in a few months. Dead leaves typically retain their natural form, whereas in the other Fusarium, they actually tend to wilt. Like the traditional Fusarium on Canary Island date palm, it's 100% fatal. There's no cure. So again, it's exclusion, and I put a question mark there, and sanitation. And the reason I put a question mark there is the people in Florida who first detected this disease and did the early work on it say that it could be spread by wind or water, which is a game changer for us. Because I don't think if that's true, we won't be able to keep it out of our palm-rich properties. If it was just on pruning tools, we know what to do. But if it spread by wind or rain, yikes, we'll be in trouble. Remove infected palms promptly with as little spread of soil and plant parts as possible, and replace a palm that died from Fusarium wilt with one that is resistant to the disease. So far we know about 4 or 5 species that are susceptible, but who knows if king palm is susceptible? Maybe the disease hasn't been here long enough for it to attack other species. So the species susceptibility list may grow with this new fusarium. And in the fusarium of Canary Island date palm, that one attacks only Canary Island date palm. So theoretically, you could replant with a queen palm, but then it might get this new fusarium. So we're kind of in a waiting pattern, holding pattern right now. So here's a summary of a comparison of the two diseases. All these diseases and pests I'm talking about have been we've covered in articles in Palm Arbor. So that'd be a good place for you to start gathering information, is to go to Palm Arbor, and you'll find various articles on these pests and diseases. I think the last disease I'll talk about is sudden crown drop. And it's primarily a problem with Canary Island date palm, a little bit with just regular date palms. And as the name implies, the canopy or crown of the palm just fails and falls off the trunk and comes crashing to the ground. And here's a case of it in Beverly Hills. So the crown appears normal. There's internal trunk decay. The outer pseudobark appears normal. The causal agent may be the fungus Theolabiopsis. It typically occurs in parts of the trunk of the Canary Island date palm that were subject to severe pruning. So remember, from palm biology review, we know that palms cannot cover over wounds on their trunk. So those wounds serve as entry sites for diseases and pests. So what avoid the use of chainsaws, because they're a very strong and powerful tool, and especially if they're doing overzealous excessive pruning techniques, typically with a chainsaw, results in this kind of damage. And you can see just below those pineapples where the trunk tissues have actually been skinned or peeled with a chainsaw, which creates wounds. And here you get a better idea of that type of wound. And this is the area where we typically find Theolabiopsis. So not only is it high up on the palm trunk, but remember that palm tissues don't reach their maximum strength and hardness on this new tissue. Palm trunk tissues are always increasing their strength and hardness. So these areas up at the top are relatively young. They don't have much strength and hardness yet. So an infection here will go fast and it'll weaken quickly. And you have these whole tops tumbling off. And there's what you see if you cut progressive cross sections in the upper part of these trunks that have failed. So again, there's no cure for sudden crown drop. It's only prevention, which means avoid the use of chainsaws if you can, because you can't clean them and they're a powerful tool that can cause a lot of damage. Disinfect saw blades between trees, control trunk and root debris at removal, and avoid overzealous pruning techniques, especially when skinning and shaping the pineapple. So again, no chainsaws. If you explain to your customers why you have to charge more because you aren't using a chainsaw. And if they insist that they want a less expensive pruning package, and you've warned them of the potential dangers of using a chainsaw, then you're sort of off the hook. But explain to them why you don't want to use a chainsaw. And this is the type of saw we should be using. I think I'll stop there. I had a couple more diseases. Maybe I can include these in the next installment next March when I talk about disorders. But are there a couple of questions?
Yeah, Donald, so there's been a chat going, and I just wanted to I'll shout them out to you and then see if
Okay.
you can answer it. So someone was asking if Chilean wine palm, Jubaea chilensis, can that be grown in South Florida?
Oh, that's a good question. Jubea chilensis likes arid weather because it grows in dry areas of Chile. And I suppose it could be if you gave it very good drainage, really good
Okay.
drainage, but the high humidity may not be good for it. It likes low humidity.
All right. And then Aubrey was asking, do palms have growth rings? So I'm imagining growth rings like a normal tree. And then are the trunks cuttable with chainsaws?
Yeah, palms do not have growth rings because growth rings are laid down by the cambium, and palms lack a cambium. So you can sort of tell the age of palm if you can count the rings on the trunk, which are from where a leaf was attached. Those are leaf scars. And if you knew how many leaves a palm typically produces in a year, you can then estimate the age of that palm by counting the leaf scars. And yes, palm trunks can be cut with a chainsaw.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Ian was asking, does fusarium affect the stability of the trunk? So once the palm is dead, is it less stable than when healthy or more prone to failure?
Uh, Eventually, palms that are killed from fusarium will either the one on Canary Island date palm or the one that attacks multiple species, the new one. The palm will die and it'll stand for quite a while, but eventually it's going to die. It'll decay and fall. So indirectly, fusarium will affects the stability of a palm, but it's not like Thielabiopsis that causes sudden crown drop, where the palm will have green leaves and then fail. That won't happen with fusarium will. All the leaves will be dead for some time, even several years, before the palm is sufficiently decayed to fail.
So someone is asking when you have your second webinar with us, if you can include the where you paused, would be great to
Yes,
highlight those. So just
I
make a
I,
note of that.
I
And
will.
then does banana moth affect Canary Island date palms?
So far, we haven't seen banana moth on Canary Island date palms, or it hasn't been
Okay.
confirmed. I should say it. Maybe it hasn't been confirmed.
All right, well, that was the last one. And Donald, thank you very much for giving this webinar. Again, folks, he's going to be giving a second webinar with us, so make sure to sign up with that and look forward to more exciting information. That was great.
Yeah, I think we have a tentative date for that. It's Tuesday, March 18th is
Tuesday,
our
March 18th,
tentative date where
same
I will,
time.
yeah, where I'll finish up the diseases, which will be pink rot and diamond scale, and then talk about disorders. Yeah.
Awesome. And then the last one I see here is I told folks it's going to be recorded and be on YouTube, but this one gal asked if it's going to be shared or can you share your presentation with them? I probably,
I
probably
think
not.
it's I think they're going to re they're it's recorded, so you'll probably be
Yeah,
able to access it that way.
yeah, I agree.
And if anybody has any questions, they can just email me, and it's just very easy. It's drhodel@ucanr.edu. I think it was on my title slide, which I thought I had presented while I was giving my introduction.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again, Donald, and I'm looking forward to the second series of this. And we really appreciate your time. Thanks everyone for joining in. And again, we're going to have many webinars coming out through the beginning of this year. So look forward to those. And thanks again.
very good. I'll look forward to seeing everybody next month.
Awesome.
Okay.